WWE 2K since WWE 2K15 has been a very, very rough journey, to say the very least. These games die quicker than ever. They don't even make it to the DLC release half the time. Nobody's searching them on YouTube after 3 months. It's just not very good. Now, while I feel like some of the stuff they did in 2K19 and some of the stuff we've seen in 2K20 so far from the little bit we got on August 5th is a step in the right direction and things that are pretty cool, I think that at the ground level of this game, that a lot needs to be changed. Now, do I expect the things that I say in this video to be in 2K20 this year? Absolutely not. But I don't think it hurts to put that energy out into the world. So we'll start the list off here at number 5, and for number 5, I put GM mode. I don't know how many more times we have to say GM mode here, but I had to put it on the list. There is like absolutely not one singular reason that this mode is not in this game. There has been a brand split in WWE since 2016. This is one of the most requested features literally every single year. I think the top 2 things that were always requested, especially since they started the MyCareer thing with 2K, have been female MyCareer and GM mode. Well, we got the female MyCareer this year, but we did not get the GM mode. At least we don't know yet. I'm sure most of you guys have seen the Fire Promoter series I do on my channel for the game Fire Pro Wrestling World, and it is a really, really cool series. Now, I think that the best thing that 2K could do is maybe almost take a look at this and see what works in Fire Promoter, because don't get me wrong, it is not perfect. Like, absolutely not perfect. I have to use a lot of mods for Fire Promoter to make things happen the way they do, but it is a very good base thing to have into the game, and I feel like 2K could learn a lot from this kind of stuff. I feel like if you were to take GM mode from, say, SmackDown versus Raw 2006, and I say 2006 because I felt like that's like the baseline for GM mode, right? I feel like if you were to take 2006 GM mode and put it in 2K nowadays, I feel like maybe it wouldn't hold up to the standards of what you would expect for a release. And I just feel like that's probably not exactly what you would want. You would need to add a few things to it. And that's why I bring up Fire Promoter, because you can take a couple of things from that and put it into this. So I just really don't see a reason other than like they just do not want to of why it's not in the game. For number 4, I put male and female matches. Now, we did get mixed tag this year, but mixed tag is not male on female action. You can already do this on the PC version of WWE 2K, but you can't do it on the console version. And let's be real, the console version is the one that most people are playing. If you're watching this right now, most of you probably play on console. So that's like the biggest thing. I don't even really see a downside to being able to do male versus female fighting in the 2K games. Like, I really just don't exactly understand why, you know, other than maybe WWE doesn't want it, which obviously X-nays the entire thing. But other than that, I really I cannot imagine that being a big issue for 1, WWE sponsors, and 2, for WWE in general, because I mean, it's a video game. Male and females fighting opens up an entire roster, because right now it's just you can use the males versus the males and the females versus the females. Now you can do the mixed tag, but I can't imagine that being like too popular of a feature unless someone can figure out a way to glitch it and get the males fighting the females. But if you just take away that restriction, the entire roster gets opened up now. Universe mode, booking Asuka versus Lesnar, and, you know, Kairi Sane versus Seth Rollins. It just opens up a ton of stuff. It's not even like the overalls are very much different between the female and the male roster. I mean, they're pretty similar for the most part. They're the people that are a little lower, but most people are pretty high up there. Asuka's a pretty high rating. You know, Charlotte. There's high rating girls too that can go in there and just keep up with the dudes. So I really, other than WWE saying, nah, I just don't see a reason why not. I highly doubt that like Snickers is going to pull out as a WWE sponsor because Johnny 2x4 on his PlayStation 4 in his mom's living room was using Brock Lesnar versus like, you know, Asuka or something. I just really cannot even imagine that being a scenario. So for the third thing on this list, I put more creative match types. In the past like year or two alone, we've had matches like War Games, Kendo Stick on a pole match. We've had 3 stages of hell that's going to happen here at this next takeover, and none of these are in the WWE games right now. I love the stuff they're adding. Like, I love the idea. Now, we haven't seen it executed yet, but in my head, I love the idea of the WWE 2K20 originals with the Swamp Man Bray and the Frankenbrawn and stuff. I know that a lot of people are like not into that at all, but I think it's a super creative idea. It gives the people working at 2K something like a creative outlet to work with, and I think we can maybe get some magic in there. But that does not make up for the clear lack of match types and things to do with the wrestlers themselves. This is a simulation-based game. That means that a lot of this is based on the matches that are happening, which means that you need to have more match types. I don't know how many times I can do a singles match. Oh, this one's a triple threat. Oh, a ladder match. It's like, okay, man, how about a buried alive match, or, you know, big show, big ladder match, or just something, just anything other. Because one of the big things in this game is universe mode. You know, book what you want, do what you want. But when you can only do singles, triple threats, ladder matches, just like, okay, well, we've been doing this for half a decade now. Can we get something going here? And then even with the ladder matches and things like that, 2K kind of put the bricks to it, you know? They're just like, oh, you can only put the ladder here. You can only put the table here. Like, just the freedom of the game has just been going down and down. Like in the old SmackDown games, I could grab a table, put it on another table, put it on another table, put a ladder on all those tables, and then jump off of it and go outside the ring. You can't even do it. It's not even a singular one crumb of that in 2019. It's just like these games have just digressed over the past 20 years somehow. I got no clue how, but they have. Now for number 2, I put Backstage Exploration. One of the best things about the older SmackDown games, I'm talking even before SmackDown vs. Raw. Now, while I feel like SmackDown vs. I know this is gonna be a hot take. While I know SmackDown vs. Raw 2005, I like that one because it felt like an actual progression of the SmackDown series and like an evolution almost. And while I truly did enjoy 06 and 07, I felt like the series started to kind of lose its identity around that point. I feel like the old SmackDown games were very special in a sense that you could not play any other game and get that same experience, like doing the crazy stuff you could do in Here Comes the Pain and Shut Your Mouth. And while I know a lot of people like the more sim-based stuff, slowed down, sell the moves sort of thing, I felt like those games just had something really, really special. You were free to basically do whatever you wanted. You know, they just gave you the characters, the ones that you knew, the ones that you loved, and just kind of let your imagination go wild. You could be creative as you want. You could do whatever you want. You could take them out and just have fun. Right now in 2K, the backstage environment is like just not good whatsoever. It's better than it was, but it's just not very good at all. I mean, they added a few things, you know, but it's just like you go backstage once and you're like, okay, well, I've done all the environmental grapples. It's not, you know, what's the point of going back here again? It's just a hallway with a bunch of characters that you can't interact with. They just run away, and then, you know, you do your same little, it's almost like a QTE, it feels like. It's just like that. Like, it's like, oh, you do your QTE once, like, oh, I don't want to do this again. I mean, just think back to the old SmackDown games when you could go outside in the snow and throw snowballs at each other. You could take the shopping cart and run into people. You go to Times Square, get on a helicopter, do a flip off of it. It's like, oh, I can take them backstage and throw them into the locker. Yeah, that's fun. Then you go back to the SmackDown games and you're like, okay, I'm going to take the subway. We're going to go to WWF New York. I'm going to get Moppy out of the crowd and I'm going to fight everybody in front of these people here. And then you go back to 2K20 and you're like, oh, yeah, I can get on top of the car. There was just something super, super cool in the old SmackDown games of just knowing that while you didn't have to do this all the time, the option was there. It didn't hinder the game whatsoever, even in the SmackDown versus Raw stuff, like the environmental stuff, like being able to run the car into another car and get an instant KO, or throwing them into the big audio system and electrocuting them and stuff. You didn't have to do this stuff. It was optional, but it just gave you a little bit of freedom to play the game differently based on how you wanted to do it. You didn't have to go outside in a snowstorm and throw snowballs at people, but like, you could, and that was dope. And the number one thing on this list that would help this game astronomically is cross-platform community creations. 2K has got to find a way to make this happen. It's not like it's cross-play. You're not actually playing with other people on different consoles. I understand that can be pretty difficult just because Sony in itself doesn't like to do that. They did it for Fortnite, but they don't do it for a lot of games. Like it's definitely something that's changing in the gaming world, but we're definitely not to that point just yet. But this has nothing to do with that. This is just downloading stuff off of servers. It is no secret whatsoever that the PS4 version of this game is the most popular. It's the one that sells the most, it has the most people, and the community creations is the most thriving. The reason I even bring this up is that there's no difference between Xbox, PS4, and PC community creations. There's no parts that are only on Xbox that would mess up any sort of transfer to the PS4. There's nothing on the PS4 that could be, you know, corrupted on the PC if you transferred something over. It's literally the exact same community creations across all 3 platforms. This one thing would literally change this series forever. Like, if they announced this, it would just, it'd be nuts. Even if they needed to put restriction on it, even if there was something on the PS4 that didn't work on the Xbox or something like that, they kind of already put restrictions on some stuff. Like, you can't download something if it's using DLC that you don't have. Then you can just kind of set restrictions for that sort of stuff and make it so that, you know, if there is something that would corrupt, say, an Xbox file or something of that sort, then like it tells you beforehand. It gives you like a warning or something. There's things that you can set in place. I just think that this would, oh my God, this would change everything. So that's just 5 things, right? There's a ton of stuff that they could be adding into these games that would make the longevity of the game better and just the baseline of the game better? And if you have some, you can feel free to tell me down in the comments below, but I want to talk about a few more things. One of the biggest things that I think people misunderstand with this series and the way that people give feedback and things like that is that there's almost like this consensus, and it's not everybody, but there's like obviously a group of people that think that 2K doesn't understand that we want these things. Like they don't understand we want GM mode, and they don't understand that we want, you know, before this year, female MyCareer or more match types and things like this. Like 2K just sits in the offices and goes, la 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 la, can't hear you, can't hear you. Funny enough, everything that I mentioned in this video here today are things that I personally have advocated for in person at the 2K headquarters to people that work on this game every single day. And people on the internet have said the same things that I have said 1,000 times. Like 2K absolutely knows this. 2K just sort of has a creative direction for this game, and they don't put these things in because either one, it's crunch and they don't have the time, or two, they don't fit in with the direction they have. Personally, I would rather them ditch whatever direction they think they got and work on adding these things instead, but it's not as simple as that. People almost use me as a lightning rod, and that's good and bad because it's a lightning rod for good things that happen and it's a lightning rod for bad things that happen. Somehow when something bad happens in 2K, it always comes back to me. I'm not entirely sure how or why, and I don't exactly appreciate it, but it's sort of just something you put up with as a creator year after year. So like when I get invited to 2K to kind of do this stuff, to capture the footage early or anything like that, which by the way, in the past couple of years here, they haven't really done anything with the creators. When I say, with the creators, it's more so like, oh, we have the regular press here and we also have the YouTubers, and they all just kind of put us in one room now, and we just kind of record the game. We'll talk to some employees that come by if we have any questions, and then we go home. But you just need to keep a few things in mind. I've been talking to people within 2K for half a decade. That is a very, very long time. A very long time. And I have mentioned GM mode almost exactly 6,000 times since I was like 21 years old. I have been mentioning GM mode for longer than most people are in high school to people at 2K. And at some point, it just becomes redundant for me to even keep asking. Like, what is the point of me continuing to get invited to these things every year and just saying the same things like a robot? Obviously, they know we want GM mode. There's nothing I can do about it. I've mentioned it so much that I feel like my head's going to explode. I just try to come up with different stuff. So like, that's what I did. Instead of mentioning GM mode for the 7,000th time over the last half a decade, I was just like, okay, I'll ask for something different. So that's what I did. I started asking for things that maybe fit more in the direction that 2K wanted to take this game and do, because anything that I say that's not in the direction of this game is just basically white noise. They just basically go, okay, well, can't do that. So that's just how it goes. Like one of the things I'd asked for a couple of years ago was the towers thing, because the towers thing in Mortal Kombat is fucking dope. It's dope. Like people can shit on towers all they want, but I think it's a rad idea. Yeah, the towers in the last year's game weren't very creative, but I feel like they can make them creative and do silly stuff. Like when I pitched the tower stuff, I was like, light the ring on fire, have lightning falling from the ceiling. If you touch the floor, you lose your legs. Like when I pitched towers, that's the kind of stuff that I pitched to them. And like, obviously it wasn't that whatsoever. It was just like, oh, don't lose, forehead. But I feel like the tower stuff, especially with it returning, they can do a lot of fun stuff with it. There's definitely a lot that they can do with this mode that is more than they did. Hell, after I sat at 2K and gave a 30-minute passionate speech where I put my heart and soul into stuff, you can ask anyone in that room that the energy that was flowing off of my body. I've never clicked more in my life talking about what I was talking about and why the direction that 2K was taking this game was the wrong one. And this was right before the release of 2K18. So this was like 2K17 we're coming off of when I did this. I mean, my relationship with 2K got a little strained. I mean, like this, like at the end of the day, this is my job, my livelihood. I put a lot of stuff into this, series, and I was willing to put all of that shit on the line just because I love these games, dude. I just like these games a lot and I want to see them be better. Like if I get invited every single year to 2K and regurgitate the same exact shit that I've said for half a decade that obviously 2K does not care about, what is the point? I'm just wasting an invite. Like, why am I even going if I'm just going to say the same stuff that I've already said 1,000 times that they've written down on that piece of paper that I've seen them write down on 2,000 times? I'm just wasting an invite at that point. Ultimately, 2K has the final say in anything that happens here. You all know this. Anyone with a brain knows this, but there is like this contingent of ignorant motherfuckers that just do not understand this. They do not understand how the real world works and how this $1 million corporation works. And they think that somehow it comes down on me. Like, you have to work with these dudes in this company. Like, if I could walk into 2K big dick out and just go, hey, motherfuckers, this is what you're going to do this year, I would do it, but you can't. They'll just tell me to get out and probably kick my ass. You can't do that, man. That's not how any of this works. Not one singular way does anything work like this. It's easy for me or anybody else to sit here and make a video like this where I talk about this and that and this and that, because I'm not talking directly to any actual executives in a company. You know, I'm not in the fucking 2K headquarters. I'm sitting in my house right now just talking about, you know, spitballing things that I think would be cool in this game. You know, when I'm talking to actual 2K executives that I already know the things that I'm about to say because I have said them 6,000 times over half a decade, and they have zero chance of adding things to the game, it's stupid. If I have said for the past 5 years, yes, I would like story creator, because yes, I would love to have story creator. If you guys watch any of my videos, you know, like I put the story creator would make them 100 times easier. I have to go in and do all this stuff like every creator does. It's a pain in the ass. We love story creator. Yes, it's a fantastic idea. I can't advocate enough for it. You know, but it's just ridiculous for me to ask, because I've asked since 2014 if they can put this in the game, and they haven't. Like, imagine me walking into these things once a year and just talking to the same employee and saying the same fucking thing over and over and over again. You got to be completely mental to not want to change up what you're saying. You gotta be. And most of you guys are normal people that this does not apply to whatsoever. I'm just talking to the ignorant ass motherfuckers that just don't understand a single thing about the real world whatsoever and how any of this works. Because at the end of the day, these 2K games have been as close to forgettable as they can possibly be. I'm not even going to beat around the bush here. This entire generation of wrestling games has done absolutely nothing for me. They've just never gotten it off the ground, and that's just the truth of the situation. 2K19 was the first 2K19 after release, you know, because after release is when things really matter. After release is when the things that you saw in the trailers that were perfectly and just wonderfully put together that are supposed to hype you up, after that release is when you see the light. If you either see the light or you don't. And 2K19 was the one where I was like, you know what, man, this actually wasn't that bad. And yes, that completely changed me, because if you go back and watch before 2K19, I was done. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I was like, I'm out. I can't, like, this is just ridiculous. I just could not get into the games whatsoever. But things have changed going into 2K20. There's a sliver of light. I'm not saying it's big. I'm not saying it's wild and out of control, but there is something there that you can see visibly with your eyes, you know, and every year I hold out for these games, hoping that maybe this year will be different. But every year I'm just making the same video just like this, where I talk about they should have done this, they should have done that. You know, we're still trying to catch up to games that were released 10 years ago, which is inexcusable. You know, it's just inexcusable. But with 2K20, I'm going to be real. There is that little bit of light, and it's solely because 2K19 had that little bit of light. Yes, it still died after 3 months. Yes, it still had huge issues that need to be addressed. A lot of things were still bad about 2K19, but I'll be damned if that little bit of light doesn't give me a small sliver of hope. All I want is to have fun on these games. All you want is to have fun on these games. Everyone wants to walk away feeling like they had money well spent and they're not getting fucked in the ass. And that's all anyone's asking, and I don't feel like we're asking a lot.